They called him the Clown, but there was nothing funny about Joey Lombardo. He smiled at indictments, he would hide his face behind newspapers with eye holes cut out, and he cracked jokes at murders. While the outfit's empire crumbled around him, Joey Lombardo kept laughing, and he died knowing things that no one else would say out loud. Welcome back to James on the Mob. I'm your host and narrator, James Jenkins. In this episode, we take a close look at Joey the Clown Lombardo, a man whose laughter masked a lifetime of silence, loyalty, and violence. Lombardo was a cunning and feared leader who rose to the rank of consigliere, or senior advisor. His criminal career spanned from the outfit's golden era to its precipitous decline, a journey that took him from the impoverished streets of Chicago's West Side to the pinnacle of the mob's operation in Las Vegas, and finally to a life sentence in a supermax prison for a murder he committed more than 3 decades earlier. Joseph Lombardo's journey to the apex of the Chicago outfit began not in a boardroom, but in the gritty, working-class, Italian-American enclaves of Chicago's West Side. It was here, amidst the struggles of an immigrant family, that he learned the dual languages of survival and violence. His early years were a masterclass in the fundamentals of organized crime, leveraging brutality for profit, cultivating an aura of invincibility through the corruption of the justice system, and demonstrating the business acumen necessary to rise from a street-level enforcer to the leader of a powerful crew. He was born Giuseppe Lombardi on January 1st, 1929, one of 11 children of Mike and Carmela Lombardi, immigrants from Bari, Italy. His father was a butcher, and the family was, by Lombardo's own admission, dirt poor. They settled on the near West Side in the Grand and Ogden Avenue area that served as a fertile recruiting ground for the mob, producing figures like the infamous enforcer Tony the Ant Spilatro. A high school dropout, the young Giuseppe eventually changed the final letter of his last name, Americanizing it to Lombardo, a subtle but significant step in crafting a new identity in a new world. For a young man with limited prospects, the Chicago outfit offered a clear and structured path to power and wealth. Lombardo once claimed his first theft, at age 18, was to pay for his mother's operation, but his criminal education likely began much earlier in the neighborhood's tough streets. He officially joined the outfit in the 1950s, ready to make his mark. Before the press dubbed him the Clown, Lombardo was known on the streets by a more fitting moniker, Lumpy or Lumbo. The name was a testament to his primary function as a juice loan collector and his talent for pounding lumps on people's heads. His early career was built on a foundation of violence and intimidation, working as an enforcer and a jewel thief. Yet from the outset, Lombardo demonstrated a cunning that set him apart from common thugs. By 1963, he had been arrested 11 times for serious charges, including kidnapping and loan sharking, and had been acquitted every single time. In one characteristic case, a factory worker who had been brutalized over a $2,000 debt suddenly found himself unable to positively identify Lombardo in court. This perfect record was not a matter of luck. It was a clear demonstration of the outfit's power to manipulate the justice system through witness intimidation. It showed that Lombardo was not just a practitioner of violence, but a beneficiary of the systemic corruption that made the outfit a shadow government. This ability to operate with impunity, to leverage both the threat of physical harm and the certainty of a compromised legal system, was the bedrock of his early success and foreshadowed his later ascent to the highest echelons of organized crime. Lombardo's combination of street smarts, ruthlessness, and an emerging business savvy did not go unnoticed. He was promoted to capo regime, or capo, of the outfit's powerful Grand Avenue crew, a significant street crew with approximately 30 soldiers under his command. This crew controlled a swath of the West Side and was involved in the outfit's core rackets, illegal sports bookmaking, the operation of video gambling machines, extortion through the collection of a street tax, and usurious juice loans. As capo, Lombardo was essentially the CEO of a diversified criminal enterprise. He also demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of the need for plausible deniability, operating through a series of legitimate business fronts. These included Lombardo Brothers Construction and the Lombardo Trucking Company, which were conveniently registered to his home address at 2210 West Ohio Street. These businesses not only provided a veneer of legitimacy, but also served as vehicles for laundering money and executing mob schemes. Unlike many of his peers who moved to affluent suburbs as they rose in power, Lombardo remained a neighborhood feature, living in the same modest building for nearly his entire life, a testament to his deep roots in the community that forged him. In 1971, Lombardo was entrusted with one of the most critical positions in the American underworld, overseeing the Chicago outfit's interests in Las Vegas. This was not merely a supervisory role, it was a complex financial operation that required both cunning and muscle. The primary objective was to manage the skim, the illegal siphoning of untaxed cash from the counting rooms of mob-controlled casinos like the Stardust, Fremont, and the Hacienda. This river of cash flowed back to the bosses in Chicago, Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Cleveland. Lombardo's power was magnified by his dual role in this scheme. He not only supervised the skim, but wielded significant influence over the Teamsters Union's Central States Pension Fund. This fund, flushed with hundreds of millions of dollars from the weekly contributions of union members, became known as the mob's bank. Lombardo and other outfit leaders directed the fund to make massive, often fraudulent loans to their frontmen in Las Vegas, allowing them to secretly purchase and expand the very casinos they were skimming. This created a perfect, self-sustaining criminal ecosystem. The mob used the Teamsters' money to buy the casino, then stole from the casinos to enrich themselves. The crime that would ultimately seal Lombardo's fate occurred on September 27, 1974. The victim was Daniel Seafford, a Bensenville, Illinois plastics manufacturer and a former business associate of Lombardo's. Seafford had made a fatal mistake. He had agreed to become a star witness for the government in a federal fraud case against Lombardo and others. The case involved a scheme to embezzle from the Teamsters Pension Fund through a company called International Fiberglass, where both men had worked. Seafford was the only witness who could directly connect Lombardo to the crime. With his testimony looming, the outfit acted. Masked gunmen ambushed Seafford in front of his wife, Emma, and his 4-year-old son, Joseph. As his family watched in horror, Seafford was shot and killed execution style. For over 3 decades, the murder remained officially unsolved. The case went cold until the Operation Family Secrets investigation in the 2000s unearthed crucial evidence. Investigators discovered Lombardo's fingerprints on the title application for one of the getaway cars used in the slaying. This physical link was corroborated by testimony from employees of an electronics store who identified Lombardo as the man who had purchased a police scanner found in the vehicle. The murder of Daniel Seafford was a stark illustration of Lombardo's methods, a direct preemptive strike to eliminate a legal threat and derail a federal prosecution. Lombardo's influence extended beyond finance and into the halls of Congress. In the early 1980s, the trucking industry was facing deregulation, a move that threatened the Teamsters' power and by extension the mob's control over the pension fund. In response, Lombardo, along with Teamsters President Roy Williams and the outfit's financial wizard Alan Dorfman, orchestrated a conspiracy to bribe U.S. Senator Howard Cannon of Nevada to kill the legislation. This audacious attempt to manipulate the U.S. government, known as Operation Pendorf, ultimately failed. In 1982, Lombardo, Williams, and Dorfman were convicted, and Lombardo was sentenced to 15 years in prison. If the Seafford murder was a tactical strike, the assassination of Alan Dorfman was a strategic imperative to protect the entire outfit leadership. Dorfman, the union insurance guru who served as the mob's financial architect, was the gatekeeper to decades of the outfit's most sensitive secrets regarding the Teamsters Pension Fund and the Las Vegas casinos. In December 1982, Dorfman was convicted alongside Lombardo and Teamsters President Roy Williams in the conspiracy to bribe Senator Howard Cannon. Facing a potential 55-year prison sentence, the 60-year-old Dorfman was a catastrophic security risk. The outfit leadership feared he would cooperate with federal authorities to save himself. On January 20th, 1983, just days before his sentencing, that risk was neutralized. As Dorfman walked through the parking lot of the Hyatt Hotel in Lincolnwood, Illinois, two assassins approached him and shot him 7 times in the head at close range. It was a brazen public execution designed to send an unmistakable message. While Lombardo was never charged with the murder, he was inextricably linked to Dorfman through their shared conviction and a separate, ongoing extortion case. Dorfman's murder was a classic gangland silencer. He knew too much, and his death would directly benefited Lombardo and the entire outfit hierarchy by permanently burying the secrets of their financial empire. The hit demonstrated the cold logic of the mob's internal security. Anyone, no matter how powerful or important, could be eliminated if they became a greater liability than an asset. A second major conviction followed in 1986 in the Strawman case, which targeted the casino skimming operation itself. Lombardo was found guilty of conspiring to skim over $2 million and received another 10-year sentence. These two landmark cases exposed the breathtaking scope of the outfit's power and placed Lombardo at the center of its most critical national operations. To protect this vast and illicit enterprise on the ground, Lombardo needed an enforcer, someone to ensure the skim ran smoothly and to intimidate any potential rivals. That man was Tony the Ant Spilatro. As Lombardo's subordinate, Spilotro reported directly to him from Las Vegas. Spilatro's mandate was to maintain discipline and protect the outfit's cash cow. However, Spilotro proved to be a disastrous choice. Instead of operating in the shadows, he cultivated a high-profile, flamboyant persona and engaged in a series of unsanctioned violent side rackets with his hole-in-the-wall gang. His brutal methods and public notoriety drew intense scrutiny from law enforcement and the media, jeopardizing the very discretion that the multi-million-dollar skimming operation required. Spilatro's insubordination and the unwanted attention he attracted became a direct threat to the outfit's bottom line. The situation was a catastrophic failure of management for Lombardo, who was unable to rein in his volatile lieutenant. By 1986, the outfit's leadership in Chicago had had enough. In a brutal display of corporate discipline, they lured Tony and his brother Michael to a house in a Chicago suburb where they were beaten and strangled to death. The murders were a direct response to the liability Tony had become. While Lombardo was not charged in the slaying, the event stands as a monumental failure in his career. His inability to control his own enforcer led to the violent removal of a key operative and helped accelerate the federal investigations that would ultimately dismantle the entire Las Vegas skimming empire he was tasked with protecting. The Spilatro saga revealed the inherent instability of the outfit's management structure and the deadly consequences of failing to control the violent men who served it. Before going any further into Joey the Clown Lombardo's life, it's worth noting some of the stunts and sayings that made him, well, the clown. The newspaper mask. One of Lombardo's most famous stunts took place in 1981. As he left the federal court, he pressed a Chicago Sun-Times newspaper against his face with holes cut out for the eyes. Reporters and photographers had rushed to get a shot of him, but he wasn't having it. His message was clear. If they want to get my image, they'll have to do it through the paper. That mask photo became iconic and a lasting symbol of his persona. Classified full-page denials. After being released from prison in 1992, Lombardo placed a classified ad in the Chicago Tribune. It read, "I never took a secret oath with guns, daggers, pricked my finger, drew blood, or burned paper to join a criminal organization. If anyone hears my name used in connection with any criminal activity, please notify the FBI, local police, and my parole officer, Ron Kumke." It was a theatrical, defiant, and vintage Joey. jokes, quips, and courtroom flair. During the 2007 Family Secrets trial, Lombardo was constantly cracking jokes and lightening the mood. He joked about being a former shoeshine boy and teased that the cops were too cheap to tip, and bantered with his own lawyer when told not to press his luck. "You told me to tell the truth." He even flirted with reporters and courtroom sketch artists. Muse to the FBI files. Lombardo's FBI files reflect his clownish attitude during federal investigations. When agents in suits raided a fiberglass plant where he worked, he told them, "You guys come in dirty work clothes and inspect me." He claimed he was being harassed and never missed a chance to get in a zinger. The last words. Even from prison, Lombardo kept the persona alive. He sent letters to the judge insisting he was positively not guilty. He ended one such letter by saying, "If anyone hears my name used in connection with criminal activity, send me proof." He remained the clown until the very end. Lombardo was released from prison in 1992 after having served 10 years. He had married a woman named Marion Negro in 1951. Together they had 2 children, and even though they divorced in 1991, they continued to live apart in the same building. And for the next 13 years, Joey seemed to live a quiet life. It's rumored that he was shelved or had been inactivated in the mob because of the Spilatro Vegas fiasco. But it was far from over. On April 25, 2005, federal prosecutors unveiled a sweeping racketeering indictment targeting 14 leading members and associates of the Chicago outfit for a conspiracy that included 18 murders. As FBI agents fanned out across the Chicago area to round up the defendants, they found one of their primary targets missing. Joseph Lombardo was gone. He had become a fugitive, sparking a nationwide manhunt. The FBI placed him on its most wanted list, offering a $20,000 reward for information leading to his capture. For over 8 months, one of the most powerful figures in the American mafia simply vanished. Rather than surrender, the 76-year-old Lombardo chose to flee, transforming himself into one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives. This 9-month period on the run became a final bizarre act in his public performance as Joey the Clown, a chapter filled with taunting letters to the court and a comically mundane capture that solidified his eccentric legend, even as his freedom evaporated. While in hiding, Lombardo engaged in a series of bizarre communications with the court. Channeling his clown persona one last time, he penned several handwritten letters to his attorney, Rick Halpern, clearly intended for the presiding judge, James Zagel. In rambling, misspelled prose, Lombardo proclaimed his innocence, denying any involvement in a criminal enterprise, and insisted he was not a violent man. He offered to take a lie detector test and requested a separate trial from his co-defendants, proposing a ridiculously low $50,000 bond for his release. He signed the letters Joe Lombardo, a innocent man. This correspondence was a masterstroke of misdirection and messaging. On one level, it was a public performance, a clown routine, designed to portray him as a harmless, misunderstood old man being railroaded by the government. On another, more critical level, it served as a powerful, coded message to his co-defendants and the rest of the outfit. By loudly and publicly protesting his innocence and refusing to surrender on the government's terms, he was making it loud and clear that he had no intention of flipping or cooperating with the authorities. In the high-stakes world of a massive RICO prosecution where the threat of betrayal is paramount, Lombardo's letters were a strategic declaration of his adherence to the code of silence. The dramatic manhunt for one of the nation's most powerful mobsters ended not in a hail of gunfire, but in a quiet suburban alley. On January 13, 2006, FBI agents acting on a tip cornered and arrested Lombardo in Elmwood Park, Illinois. The tip that led to his capture was born of a simple human ailment. Lombardo was suffering from a severe abscessed tooth and had sought treatment from a dentist. In a twist of fate laden with irony, The dentist he visited was Patrick Spilatro, the brother of the late Tony Spilatro, the very man who had once reported to Lombardo from Vegas. Lombardo's subsequent arraignment provided a final classic clown moment. Appearing in court in an orange prison jumpsuit, the frail-looking mob boss was asked by Judge Zegel why he had not sought medical attention for his known condition of arterial sclerosis while on the run. With the courtroom packed with reporters, Lombardo rasped, I was unavailable. The courtroom erupted in laughter. It was a perfect encapsulation of his public persona. Even when facing a life sentence for murder, he could not resist the urge to deliver a punchline. The capture of Joseph Lombardo set the stage for one of the most significant organized crime trials in American history. The Operation Family Secrets case would not only determine Lombardo's fate, but would also expose the inner workings of the Chicago outfit in unprecedented detail, shattering its code of silence and crippling its leadership. For Lombardo, the trial was the final act, a legal battle that stripped away the clown persona and laid bare a lifetime of violence. His conviction led to his final years spent in the nation's most secure federal prison, a silent and ignominious end to a career built on power and notoriety. The Family Secrets trial, which began in June of 2007, was a landmark prosecution that named the entire Chicago outfit as a criminal enterprise. Its very name derived from the shocking source of the government's information. The investigation was born from a 1998 letter written by Frank Calabrese Jr., an imprisoned mobster who offered to wear a wire to gather evidence against his own father, the ruthless hitman Frank Calabrese Sr. This act of familial betrayal was compounded when Frank Sr.'s brother, Nicholas Calabrese, also an admitted hitman, agreed to cooperate with the government. Nicholas Calabrese became the prosecution's star witness, providing chilling first-hand testimony about 18 unsolved mob hits, including the brutal murders of the Spilatro brothers. Against Lombardo, prosecutors focused on the 1974 murder of Daniel Seafford. They presented the crucial physical evidence, Lombardo's fingerprint on the title application for the getaway car, and testimony from witnesses who sold him a police scanner found in the vehicle. This was bolstered by Nicholas Calabrese's insider testimony about outfit operations. In a highly unusual move for a mob boss, Lombardo took the stand in his own defense. He denied any involvement in the Seafford murder, claiming he was at a police station at the time, reporting a lost wallet. To counter the charge that he was a lifelong member of a criminal conspiracy, he pointed to the classified ad he had taken out in the Chicago Tribune upon his release from prison in 1992, in which he publicly disavowed any connection to organized crime. He presented this as a definitive proof of his withdrawal from the mob, a legal argument aimed at circumventing the statute of limitations for the conspiracy charge. The jury was not persuaded by Lombardo's theatrics. On September 10, 2007, they found him and his co-defendants guilty of the overarching racketeering conspiracy. 17 days later, on September 27th, the jury returned a special verdict specifically finding Lombardo guilty of participating in the murder of Daniel Seafford. On February 2, 2009, a wheelchair-bound Joseph Lombardo appeared for sentencing before Judge James Zegel. He remained defiant to the end, telling the court, "Now I suppose the court is going to send me to life in prison for something I didn't do," and repeating, "I did not kill Danny Seafford." Judge Zegel's response was a powerful rebuke that cut through Lombardo's lifelong persona. "In the end, we are judged by our actions, not by our wit or our smiles," Zegel stated. "In cases like this, we are judged by the worst thing we have done. And the worst things you have done are terrible. And I see no regret in you." With that, he sentenced Joseph Lombardo to life in prison. Lombardo was sent to serve his sentence at ADX Florence in Colorado, the most secure supermax prison in the federal system, a facility designed to hold the nation's most dangerous inmates in extreme isolation. His health, already poor, continued to decline. He had suffered a minor heart attack while in federal lockup awaiting trial and had undergone multiple stent procedures. In prison, he battled throat cancer, and on October 19, 2019, Joseph Lombardo died at the age of 90 at the Federal Medical Center in Butner, North Carolina, where he had been transferred for medical care. The clown, who had once commanded a criminal empire and captivated a city with his antics, died quietly, a numbered inmate far from the Chicago streets where he had built his legend. So goes the story of Joseph the Clown Lombardo. The central paradox of Lombardo's life, the grinning public clown versus the cold-blooded killer, is more than just a curiosity. It is a microcosm of the Chicago outfit itself. He embodied the organization's capacity for both sophisticated national-level criminal enterprise and savage street-level violence. His story charts the outfit's evolution from a seemingly untouchable shadow government to an institution crippled by federal law enforcement and, most devastatingly, the collapse of its own sacred code of silence, or omerta. Lombardo's conviction in the landmark Operation Family Secrets trial, a case built on the unprecedented testimony of a mobster against his own father and uncle, signaled the end of an era. His life began during the height of the outfit's power in the 1950s, a period when its influence stretched from City Hall to the glittering casinos of the Nevada desert. It ended in a prison hospital, a final muted punchline to a life of crime that ultimately could not outrun the consequences. The story of Joseph Lombardo is the story of the Chicago outfit's last stand, a tale of immense power, strategic violence, and the institutional decay that brought it all crashing down. And one more final observation. If you've ever watched the 2007 movie No Country for Old Men, then I'm sure you're familiar with one of the movie's leading actors, Javier Bardem, as the villainous killer, Anton Chigurh. And in the comments below, let me know if you think Bardem's character bears a striking resemblance to somebody we've discussed. I'm James Jenkins. I hope you've enjoyed this episode on The Funny Not So Funny Clown. If so, you know what to do. Break that like thumb, subscribe and share, and be on the lookout for another episode of James on the Mob. And remember, life is short, so don't wag it off. See yous.